Hello students, I welcome you all to my online class. It's an attempt to conduct the classes on online mode, and if you have any queries, any problem, any trouble in understanding the topics, you must ask me. You must communicate through the email or in the Google Classroom. So first, today I'm going to discuss about Marchantia, and I have divided uh, the life history, complete life history of Marchantia in two different parts. First is the vegetative part, and second is the reproductive part. In the vegetative part, that is the we'll discuss about the vegetative structure of different parts of Marchantia, and in the reproductive parts, we'll discuss very thoroughly about different reproductive methods or different modes of reproduction. So let's start. Let's join the class. This is the systematic position of Marchantia. Marchantia belongs to the division Bryophyta class Hepaticopsida, order Marchantiales, family Marchantiaceae, and the genus Marchantia. But according to recent classification, the genus Marchantia belongs to the division Marchantiophyta, class Marchantiopsida, order Marchantiales, family Marchantiaceae, and the genus Marchantia. What's the habitat of Marchantia? That means uh, where in which type of places Marchantia live or prefer to grow. So Marchantia prefers to grow in moist, cool, shady places and areas of burnt ground. Places like streams, springs, watercourses, walls of wells, swamps, springs, wet rocks, sandy hill slopes are also suitable for the growth of Marchantia. And now we discuss the gametophytic phase of Marchantia. So first we see the morphology of the thallus. So this is the representative diagram of the male and female gametophytic plants. And as we all know that Marchantia is a heterophilic species, and that's why it will have two different types of gametophytic plants, that is male and female. So this is the left one. This A drawing is the male gametophytic plant, and this is the female gametophytic plant. So you see this male gametophytic plant uh, where these structures are visible. Uh, this is the midrib part, and these are the reproductive structures called the male receptacles. And in this figure, B figure, uh, the morphology is almost same, but this reproductive structure called the archegoniophore, this is somewhat different from the male reproductive structure. So let's discuss one by one and in details in the next slides. Come to the next slide, please. Now, the thallus marchantia is somewhat fleshy, dark green in color, flat, dichotomously branched, and dorsi-ventrally differentiated. The thallus possesses an apical notch, and the apical notch represents the growing point of the thallus. The dorsal surface of the thallus is marked by some rhomboidal to polygonal areas called areolae. Its areola, the singular form is areola. So each areola represents an air chamber, and the centrally located conspicuous hole represents the air pore. So the air pore is meant for the gaseous actions between exterior and interior. The dorsal surface of the thallus possesses some gamma cups. So gamma cups are some cup-like structures which possess inside some vegetative reproductive structures known as gamete. And on the dorsal side, there are some other structures also meant for sexual reproduction. So the structures are known as gametophores or gametangiophores. The male gametangiophore is called the enteridiophore, and the female gametangiophore is called the archegoniophore. Ventral surface of the thallus is also very interesting. So the ventral surface possesses two different types of rhizoids, the smooth-walled rhizoids and the tuberculate or pegged rhizoids. Some scales arranged in 2 or 4 rows sometimes on the either side of the midrib also originate from the ventral surface of the thallus. Scales possess some mucilous papillae which secrete mucilus to surround and protect the growing region of the thallus from desiccation. Now come to the anatomy of the thallus. The internal tissue differentiation is well marked. The cells are arranged in 3 distinct regions. First is the epidermal region, second is the photosynthetic region, and third is the storage region. So I'm not repeating the anatomy diagram in the next slides of anatomy, which I have already mentioned in the first slide of anatomy. So I've already told you that the anatomically there is in much tissue differentiation in the thallus. So the tissues are differentiated into 2 different regions, of which the first region is the epidermal region and the second region is the photosynthetic region, and third region is the storage region. And we are going to discuss each region one by one. So first is the epidermal region. So it consists of well-defined upper and lower epidermis. The upper epidermis forms a surface layer over the photosynthetic region. It consists of a single layer of thin-walled cells which are more or less chloroplast bearing. So, the upper epidermis is protective in function. Upper epidermal layer is interrupted with some barrel-shaped air pores. So air pores are meant for the gaseous exchange. The air pores are also analogous to the stomata of higher plants. Cells of the lower epidermal region is similar to those of the cells of upper epidermis. From the lower epidermis, scales and 2 types of rhizoids arise. Rhizoids are meant for anchorage and absorption. Scales maintain the moisture below the thallus. Now come to the photosynthetic region. So this region is located just beneath the upper epidermis, forming some chambers like known as air chambers. So air chambers are arranged in a single horizontal layer, and each chamber is separated from one another by some partition of 1 cell layer thickness. Each chamber communicates with the exterior by the air pores. From the floor of the air chambers arise some simple or branched green-colored assimilatory or photosynthetic filaments. So cells of the photosynthetic filaments are full of chloroplasts, and those cells take part in the photosynthesis process, that means the food production process for the entire plant, complete plant. Hello students, this is the summary of today's class through the diagrams. So all the structures belong to the morphology of the Marchantia gametophyte. If we see the first drawing, here we see the thallus is flapped, green in color, dichotomously branched. This is the dichotomous branching. Okay, and this is the dorsal view from which the gamma cups originate. From the lower side of the thallus, that is ventral side of the thallus, rhizoids appear, and again from the dorsal view, we see the presence of antheridiophore, that is the male sex organs. The antheridiophore possesses a stalk and a disc. This part is disc or the male receptacle. So this is the male thallus. This A figure is the male thallus. This B figure belongs to the female thallus. Uh, Here the morphological nature is same with the male thallus, but the main only difference is the archegoniophore, where this archegoniophore possesses a disc uh, with some finger-like projections. So here you see this is the antheridiophore. Antheridiophore possesses a disc or a receptacle with some lobed margins, but this disc possesses some finger-like projections. So this is the enlarged dorsal view of the thallus, where this part is the midrib. So midrib is clearly visible, which runs from the bottom to the top. So this is the midrib part, and these are the gamma cups. This is one gamma cup, this is another gamma cup, this is another gamma cup, and on the dorsal view, some polygonal or hexagonal areas are also visible. So see, these are the polygonal or hexagonal areas which are visible on the dorsal view of the thallus. So these areas represent the air chambers, which are present just beneath these polygonal areas, and each polygonal area possesses a centrally located dot. You see, these are the dots, uh, dots. Okay, each dot represents the air pore, which is meant for the gaseous actions between exterior and interior. Coming to this diagram now, this is the dorsal view of the thallus. Almost same structure with this, but this is here we see the antheridiophore in somewhat enlarged view. This is the antheridiophore. Here a total of 4 antheridiophores are present, and each antheridiophore is arising from the terminal part of the thallus, just from the apical notch of the thallus. And this diagram is also same with the left hand side diagram, where these the archegoniophores, that means this is the archegoniophores, that means this is the female thallus, and the left hand side is the male thallus. Morphologically all these all are same, all are alike, but the only difference is the presence of the sex organs. Here this is these are the antheridiophores and these are the archegoniophores, and that's why this is a male thallus and this is a female thallus. So come to the next slide. This is the ventral view of the thallus. Okay, where we come to see uh, some structures just like rhizoids and scales, and also the midrib. Okay, midrib. So midrib is visible from the dorsal view also. Rhizoids originate from the midrib part throughout the length of the midrib, and rhizoids are of two different types. The smooth-walled rhizoids, this is the smooth-walled rhizoids, and the tuberculate or pegged rhizoids. Okay, and scales, these are the scales. Scales are present on either side of the midrib, in a single in 2 to 4 rows. Sometimes they are arranged in 2 rows. Here I have drawn here the scales are present in 2 rows, but sometimes in some species scales may be present in 4 rows also. Okay. Rhizoids, rhizoids are meant for encourage and absorption, and the scales are meant for maintaining the uh, proper moisture level below the thallus. Okay, this is all about the morphological nature of the thallus. So it's very simple. You must practice, you must prepare from my lecture and from the textbooks. Come to the next diagram now. So this diagram belongs to the anatomy of thallus. Okay, so anatomically, much tissue differentiation is seen in the thallus. See here, these tissues are highly differentiated to perform different functions. So anatomically, we can divide the entire thallus into 3 different regions. First is the epidermal region, both upper and lower epidermal regions. Okay, then the photosynthetic region, this part is the photosynthetic region, and this part is the storage region. Okay, this part is the storage region. So epidermal region comprises both upper epidermis and lower epidermis. See, upper epidermis is not continuous due to the presence of some air pores. These are air pores, these are air pores, and thus the continuity breaks on the upper epidermis. So just uh, below each air pore, the air chamber is present. This is the air chamber part. Each air chamber opens towards exterior by these air pores. The air pores are meant for a gaseous exchange between exterior and the interior of the thallus. Okay? And the upper epidermis is protective in function. So come to the lower epidermis now. So this is the lower epidermis. Okay, this is present just below of the thallus, just beneath the thallus. So lower epidermis is a continuous layer. The continuity doesn't break here. So from the lower epidermis, rhizoids, this is scale, not rhizoid, scale, and 2 different types of rhizoids originate. So this is the smooth wall rhizoid, and this is the tuberculate rhizoid. And from the margin of the thallus, on the ventral side, these are the scales originate. Okay, these are the scales originate. So this is all about the epidermal region of the thallus. Now come to the photosynthetic or the assimilatory region of the thallus. So this is the assimilatory or the photosynthetic region of the thallus. So this photosynthetic or the assimilatory region is filled with some distinct air chambers. Each air chamber is partitioned by some vertically positioned layer of single cell thickness. Okay, from the floor of each air chamber, or from the floor of the photosynthetic region, these photosynthetic filaments originate. These are the photosynthetic filaments. The filaments may be branched or sometimes unbranched also. So the cells of each filament are full of chloroplasts. That means all the cells are chloroplast bearing cells, all are green in color, and they directly take part in the process of photosynthesis. That means these are the only cells which perform the function of photosynthesis. That means they are engaged in the food production process for a complete entire thallus. Now come to the lower region. This is the storage region. Okay, and these are the storage region cells. The cells are, see here, the cells are compactly arranged without any intercellular spaces. All the cells are parenchyma in nature. uh, the cells mainly store starch as the reserve food material, but some cells may also store some fatty substances like oil bodies and some mucilaginous substances here and there. So these cells mainly uh, store food materials for the complete thallus. Uh, I think the anatomy is not so hard, and you have understood the anatomy part of the thallus also. You must prepare from the drawing. You must practice to draw this diagram properly, and try to understand the different structures belonging to the anatomy of the thallus. So this is the end of today's class. Hello students, hope you have understood the vegetative structures of Marchantia. So the vegetative structure of Marchantia comprises the morphology, the anatomy, and the positions of different reproductive parts, both vegetative and sexual reproductive parts, on the thallus surface. So if you have understood the vegetative structures well, then we can start the reproductive structures and the sexual reproduction as well in my next class. So let's move to the next slide in the next class.